Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Commuter, which I saw the trailer come out for this. I'm like, well, here we go again, taking on a train. And honestly, I remember when The Gray came out, taken with lulls, but it was much more than that. So I'm kind of hoping this is going to be much more than that. I enjoyed the shallows that Jaume Collet-Serra did before this as a director, and he Collet-Serra did a lot of films with Liam Neeson up to this point as well, and I was kind of hoping that this would hit more on like that. And not gonna lie, through the first half of this film, I thought this was great. I had a lot of high hopes. I heard the mixed reviews, and I'm like, okay, it's definitely not on the first half of this film. And then the second half of the film happened. I'm like, oh, that's where those reviews came from. But to take some steps back, so I felt like Collet-Serra did a really nice job of directing this film. You can tell he's a very talented director, and telling this story, for the most part, up until the last third, I felt did a very nice job of balancing the story and telling this well. Because by the third act, so much just like felt like it jumped a shark, and so many crazy things started happening, and it's going all over the place. And exposition dump after exposition dump after exposition dump, and I didn't feel like the film stuck the landing, and it wasn't as balanced towards the end. And pacing wise, by the third act, it started to drag, because I'm like, where the hell's this film gonna go from here, kind of thing. And I was just like, wrap it up, which is never a good thing towards the end. Like, at any point in a film, you never want to be sitting there thinking like, wrap this up. And I kind of felt that way towards the end of this film, which was really disappointing. From a tonal perspective, I felt this was a sharp, brutal, and mysterious and tense film. And I think that was a strength that Collet-Serra really brought throughout this film, because you never really lose that. There's always that for it. And there's some emotional moments, there's some heavy moments, there's really tense moments. But once this train goes off the rails, it felt like all that kind of stuff got thrown out the train and tumbled along the tracks behind us, and that's where we got stuck towards the end of this film. This was cinematography done was by Paul Cameron, and this is so well shot and so well put together. There's an opening part in this film where Collet-Serra tells the story of and expresses to us how meandering and repetitive Liam Neeson's life is in this as a commuter, chopping up all these shots of different days, pulling them together, and time passing. That was so great. That montage was fantastic. And then the camera work in this, one of the best shots is like the camera going through one of the punch holes and like the punch hole cards on the train. And this was really well shot, and the action for the most part was really, really well shot, until CGI mess towards the end kind of like threw this whole film for a loop, which I didn't feel like it needed to do that, because it was doing so well up to that point. But this was so well shot, it was very sleek looking, and I thought that this had a lot of style, and that's what kept you in this film for a decent amount of it, was you being really brought in. Now, this is from one of my favorite writers, sarcastic favorites, by committee. Because of course there's like 3 or 4 writers on this, and you could tell by the end this story was super interesting and intriguing and mysterious and tense throughout the first 2/3, and then they back-ended on the exposition, and then kind of just like, okay, now I'm just sitting here listening to people tell me what the hell happened through this whole entire movie, not digging this anymore. And I felt like where they took the story went way too far. Now there's a lot of interesting characters. Some of them could have been more fleshed out, but the performances, I think, brought a little bit more. But the main character had a lot going for him. There's a lot of fun, just smaller characters throughout. And overall, like the dialogue, there's some great tense dialogue. There's some great interactions with characters that really made you feel connected with them. Mostly the first 2/3 of the movie. I have to keep saying the third act of this movie felt like a complete mess, and the dialogue just written such heavy-handed exposition that it's like, oh god, okay. But the thing is, I felt like by the very end, this film really hits. And like the last part, very last part of this movie felt like yeah kind of thing, but most of the third act feels like a hot mess. It tries to do some things in terms of talking about like the middle class and like Goldman Sachs and making commentary about classism and stuff like that. And I thought some of it was fine, some of it felt heavy-handed. It's just like, okay, I know what you're trying to say here. Now the composer, Roque Baines, oh my god, this score was really tense and different and interesting, and it's not your stereotypical generic kind of score that you're going to see. It's more modern sounding kind of score, and I thought that was very powerful and really built up tension in a lot of the sequences throughout the film, so I really enjoyed that about this. Now the cast, Liam Neeson was great. Liam Neeson really sold this role and this film. He did a great job. And they also wrote in it that he's from Ireland, so he didn't have to try to do an American accent. He could just do his own thing. So, plus, Vera Farmiga doesn't get a whole lot of face interactions in this film. It's a lot of, she's angry on a phone. But when you do see her, she has like little character choices that are really great. And I'm just like, oh, I love you, Vera Farmiga. And Patrick Wilson, I thought, did a nice job in this film. He had some good moments. A lot of there's particular characters that are comic relief, and they're so, like, really bad. I didn't like the comic relief in this, but he had some moments where he had, like, some sharp humor, or, like, sharp biting comments about people that got some laughs, and I thought he did a nice job. And Jonathan Banks, who has a real small role in this, thought it was honestly one of the realest characters in this film, and it just felt so natural. I really enjoyed his presence throughout the film and the parts that he was in. So much promise for a long stretch of this, and it completely jumps the shark to the detriment of the whole entire film, because this is on the way to being a really strong film, and then it went to shit. And I felt bad about that, and it kind of sticks the landing by the end, but when it all balances out, I have to give The Commuter a C.